Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I'm an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. If you would like to know more about my knitwear designs, please check in the description below, and there you will find a link to my Ravelry designer page where you can look at all of the different patterns that I have available that if you want to, you can get a PDF and you can knit them up yourself. If you do decide to knit one of my patterns, I would love to hear about it. You can either chat with me in the comments below, like maybe if you need some help picking out some yarn, or you can check in the description below and find a link to my Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group. That's someplace where we can exchange pictures and chat, and it's a little bit more interactive than the YouTube comments, but either way, I check them out and would love to chat with you. And funny, the Facebook group is actually the reason why I'm making this video today. This is sort of a preliminary Let's Talk because Thursday will be this month's big Let's Talk, and I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to talk about, but I wanted to talk about a little something today that came up. I had mentioned, and in some context, and I don't remember really, but the process, when I was opening up my yarn that I just recently got, the context of how an independent designer works with magazines and yarn companies and things, and I thought it'd be fun to let you guys in on a little bit of the, I guess, behind the scenes, or if you're a aspiring designer, maybe a little bit on how this whole crazy system works. Now, I don't even pretend to understand all of it, but I can explain a little bit about what I do know. Now, the first thing is you have to either get on a magazine's call list. If you go to most magazines' websites, you will find a place, usually it's under Contact Us, where it's like, if you would like to be notified of future calls, please give us your email address and they'll send it out. Or they have specific information on how to submit. I know Knitty has an extensive chunk. They talk about how to submit. And also in Ravelry, there is a designers forum or group, and I'll put a link to that in the description below, where yarn companies and magazines post calls for design. Now, what a call for design usually involves is a theme and something called a mood board, and it will give you what your compensation will be, and it will give you your timeline, your general timeline. And you know what? I bet you could almost hear that. My watch buzzed at me. I'm going to take it off so it doesn't buzz in my mic again. Crazy technology. So, I haven't been on the magazine end of it, but I have a vague idea based on the end result, how it works. So magazine editors get together and they decide what the theme of the magazine is going to be. And within each magazine, there's usually 2 or 3 different stories that they're telling. So they have a framework that they want you designed to. And then they go all over the internet and they find inspirational photographs. Now, sometimes these are actual, like, here's a really cool pair of mitts, and sometimes it's more like, here's a bunch of people sitting around a fire roasting marshmallows. They're inspirational, and as a designer, you're supposed to look at these images that they provide, and it's supposed to send you off creatively to figure out what you might be able to design that might fit into this thematic story that they've developed. And one thing I want to mention with magazines is, so right now we're looking at late spring. The calls for next spring, they're already done. They're gone. The next calls that'll come out will be sometime in the summer, and they'll be for next summer. So you work almost an entire year in advance. So it's kind of funny that you're in the middle of summer and you might be designing something for like next winter. But they do. They come up with the themes, and sometimes they have a color theme, and sometimes it's just more of an amorphous theme, or sometimes it's like party time. You just have to look at it and get an idea. Another really useful thing, and if you're an aspiring designer out there, is to go and look at back issues to get a feel for that magazine's, who is that magazine's knitter? Who is that magazine aiming at? Because different magazines have different end consumers. So something might be appropriate for, say, Knit Simple, but it's not going to be appropriate for a magazine that's catering towards more complex projects. So you have to tailor your ideas to fit that end consumer of the magazine. So you look at the mood board and you look at their call, whether or not they want garments or shawls, or sometimes they're very specific. We want scarves and things, but not this. And sometimes they're like, we want all the pillows. It just depends. And then you brainstorm. And a lot of designers sketch. I do not sketch. I cannot draw. I swatch. And that is the thing. If you want to be a designer, there's going to be a lot of swatching because you just got to swatch. So you sketch or you swatch or you do whatever your creative process is. But in the end, what you need to have is a proposal. And what the calls will tell you what needs to be in the proposal. But at a bare minimum, you have to A, have your name, address, and contact information. And you need to have that on every single page of your proposal. Now, you also need to pay attention that how many pages, because some of them are very specific and they're like, we only want a one-page proposal. And if that's the case, you need to pay attention because they don't want people writing patterns for them that can't follow directions in the first place. So you need to look at the directions and see what it says. And once you have your name on everything, then you need to explain a little bit about the design. You need to talk about the yarns you chose, and the yarns don't have to be exactly the yarns you want. And most of the time, especially in a magazine, it's not going to end up being the yarn that you picked out. But what you need to explain is, I chose 100% wool because I want it to do X, Y, Z. Or I chose a yarn with a heavy nylon content because I'm making a sock. You need to explain to them why you chose the yarn you chose and how it impacts your design. And that will help them, if they're going to substitute yarn, understand where you were going. And then you definitely you have to have a swatch. You have to have at least a swatch. If you have multiple different textures and multiple different motifs, you need to have a swatch for each element of your piece. And you have those swatches, and then you need a sketch that shows how those swatches go together, like a fashion sketch. And you can go online, and if you search for something called a croquis, Croqui, they're actually fashion figures that you can trace. And I do a whole lot of tracing because I can't draw at all. If I can find one of my images, I will put it up here for you guys to see and know that I am a tracing fool. Now, you've got your swatches, you've explained to them, you might want to mention how you feel it fits into the themes, and you package all that up in a well-written proposal, and you proofread it. You make sure you didn't spell the editor's name wrong or the name of the magazine wrong, because again, they're looking at this to see what your attention to detail is. And if you have misspellings, and if you miss some of their requirements, like if they specifically said, we need to know what the skill level is, and you don't tell them what the skill level is, why should they think that you are going to pay attention when they tell you how they want their patterns written? So pay attention. A lot of magazines accept PDFs. You have to scan everything, like your swatches, you scan them and you send them in. But then there are other ones that require you physically mail the samples in. So you have to pay attention to that. If it is a physical mailing, do not leave things to the last minute. You need to make sure it gets shipping time, because if you're, multiple days away from wherever the location is, you need to make sure it gets there on time. Once you send that in, they take time and they make their choices. And one of the things I want to talk about, and this is more to the aspiring designers out there, Just because your piece doesn't get in doesn't mean they didn't like it. As I said at the beginning, they have a theme, they have a story that they're trying to tell, and they might love your piece, but if it doesn't fit with the other pieces they've received to tell a coherent story, it just might not work, and they might have to say no thank you. All of the pieces have to kind of get along. So they have to wait until they get all of the submissions and they look at all of the submissions and create a coherent collection from all of those pieces. So getting rejected doesn't mean that your piece was bad. It doesn't even mean that they didn't like it. It just means it wasn't appropriate for this one. So once you've got this proposal done, it's done. If you get it back, instead of being like, oh, I'm so sad I didn't get in, you need to be, yay, I have this, file it, and it's ready. Next time, that piece might be perfect for another call, or you might be able to tweak it just a little bit and submit it to another magazine. The very first thing I got in a magazine, it was rejected the first time I submitted and then accepted the second time. So, you know, it's just a rolling kind of thing. And also, if you have gotten it completely thought out and you really love the pattern, you can then do an independent publication with it, and it might be a great bestseller for you. You never know. So rejection isn't the worst thing in the world. I do have something I wanted to show you, and it is an example of this. I submitted it to a publication, and it was rejected, but I was still completely in love with it. So I then took the the proposal, and I tweaked it, and I changed it, and I really looked at it, and I said, you know what? In the end, it really wasn't appropriate because the original submission was to a yarn company and it really wasn't a perfect fit with their yarn, but I found another yarn company that I thought it was a perfect fit with. And I created another proposal, this is a different kind of proposal. It is when you as a designer, are contacting a yarn company and asking them to provide what's called yarn support to your design. You want to do the same thing. You want a formal proposal. You want to have swatches and sketches, and you want to, when you contact this yarn company, present a professional front so that they understand that you're going to create a professional pattern. So you send in the same kind of proposal I just described and say, hello, I have this idea. I think it would look beautifully in your yarn. Would you be willing to provide me yarn support for this? Now they're going to look at it and see if it fits in with their marketing scheme, and they may and may not send you yarn. And that is what I did with this. So these are the swatches that I created. So this is the swatch of cables, right? And I did it in 100% wool that I just got. It's sort of a generic yarn. And then it was going to be a hat. And, you know, they might not be able to visualize what this hat is going to look like. So I also did my frisbee. And what this is the crown decrease. And so it's to show how the two pieces come together. And as a person who's reviewing these things, you have to be able to take and put the pieces together and sort of visualize what this is gonna look like. So these are the two pieces, and I have a sketch. I might have shown it to you if I can find it. And in the end, it ended up being my hat pattern. Cables are cool. So you can see that. And, oops, upside down. That. So that is these two swatches. This is the end hat. Now, I ended up getting yarn support for this from the amazing company Dream and Color Yarns in Classy, which is a great worsted weight yarn, and in fabulous colors. I mean, I liked this. This was okay. This, I think, is absolutely fabulous. The kind of goldy yellow and gray. It's amazing. I loved it. And I published it independently for myself and put it out there because I liked it so much. Now, I could have held on to it. I'm not leaving that off. It looks silly. I could have held on to it and submitted it to another magazine, but I was so excited about it, I wanted it out there. So that is another thing. I hope that that gave you some idea of the arc of what designers go through from conception to proposal to end product. It can be a long process when you're dealing with a magazine. I will be finishing up knitting something in the next month or so that won't be published until next spring. Sometimes the lead time is longer. With my books, it was 2 years. And sometimes you have to, like if you do get yarn support from a yarn company, they might have a marketing thing that they're doing, and you might have to wait till their release schedule. It's a whole bunch of fun because it's all with yarn. If you have any questions, if I glossed over something or made a comment about something, I would love to hear it. Please ask in the comments below. And I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it the big old thumbs up, click that like button. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Thank you so much.